Well, thank you so much for being with us on Parliament Television, and I'd like to say welcome to today's live broadcast of the various committees that are sitting in various committees. We know that the Minister of Finance was here 2 weeks ago when he presented the 253.1 billion kwacha budget for 2026, and the various committees were receiving submissions from various stakeholders, and this time around the committees are now submitting to the Expanded Planning and Budgeting Committee, which is receiving the recommendations, and later on they will present to the whole House come this month towards the end. So today we will continue broadcasting the Expanded Planning and Budgeting Committee as they continue interacting with various chairpersons and their vices. And for now, we cross over to that committee. This is Parliament Television. My name is Paul Sentindovi. My sign language interpreter is Jason Manda. I'll be able to recap whatever they'll be able to transact between now and the time they adjourn the committee meeting.
This committee will be introducing themselves during the time of interaction through questions so that we can catch up on the time. So as I indicated, we have those 4 heads, so we'll allow you to take us through all of them, and then we'll let the members do interventions through questions if at all there will be any. We'll give you, say, 20 minutes maximum if you need all of it to take us through the submission, and then maybe another 10-15 minutes for the members. So we can start, sir.
Chair, my name is Binwa Mpundu, standing in for the chairperson of the committee who is out. And as you notice, some of our other committee members are within your committee.
Yeah.
So on behalf of the committee chair, which is a committee on energy, water development and tourism, we have made this report around the 4 heads, head 52, 53, 62 and 60. Chair, the committee has the honor to present its report on the estimates of revenue and expenditure for the financial year 1st January to 31st December 2026 for the 5th session of the 19th or rather 13th National Assembly. In accordance with Standing Order 207H of the National Assembly of Zambia, Standing Order 2024, the committee considered the 2026 estimates of revenue and expenditure. Specifically, the committee considered these heads: 52 for the Ministry of Water Development and Sanitation, 53 Ministry of Green Economy and Environment, 62 Ministry of Energy, as well as 68, which is the Ministry of Tourism. Chairperson, pursuant to Article 202 of the Constitution of Zambia, Chapter 1 of the Laws of Zambia, the 2026 estimates of revenue and expenditure were presented to the National Assembly of Zambia by the Minister of Finance and National Planning, Dr. Stumbeko Msokotwani, on Friday, 26 September 2025. The 2026 budget, amounting to 253 billion, was delivered under the theme Consolidating Economic and Social Gains Towards a Prosperous, Resilient and Equitable Zambia. Now, in accordance with Standing Order 166 of the National Assembly of Zambia, Standing Orders, the estimates were referred to various committees for detailed consideration. In scrutinizing the 4 heads of expenditure referred to the committee, 8 meetings were held, and the committee interacted with the Minister of Water Development and Sanitation, the Minister of Green Economy, the Minister of Energy, as well as the Minister of Tourism, as well as their respective permanent secretaries, and 8 selected grant-aided institutions, as well as non-state actors. The committee's report, Chair, highlights the findings and recommendations of the committee on each head. The report in this regard is in 4 parts. Number 1, we present the estimates, findings and recommendations arising from the consideration of the budget estimates 52 of the Ministry of Water. Part 2, we outline the findings and recommendations emanating from the consideration of the budget around head 53. Part 3, we outline findings and recommendations emanating from consideration of the budget estimates for head 62, which is the Ministry of Energy, as well as part 4, which outlines findings and recommendations emanating from the consideration of the budget estimates for head 68, which is the Ministry of Tourism. Let me therefore, Chair, highlight some of the recommendations of the committee on the 4 heads of expenditure. I'll start with 52, which is the Ministry of Water Development and Sanitation. Chair, the committee observes that the 2026 budget allocation of 2.69 billion to the Ministry of Water Development and Sanitation reflects a nominal growth, which is representing only 1.06% share of the national budget. This share remains very inadequate. The declining share of the budget highlights chronic underprioritization relative to its developmental importance. The committee further observes that the budget is overwhelmingly driven by capital assets, which stands at 89.9%, creating a substantial disconnect between building capacity as well as sustaining that capacity. The implication of this structure of allocation is that the majority of the 1.83 billion for the water supply and sanitation is likely dedicated to construction, with a disproportionately small amount left for operational necessities such as maintenance, monitoring, utility subsidies, as well as staff training. In this regard, Chair, the committee recommends that for the water sector to perform better and achieve universal access to safe and clean water as well as adequate sanitation, it needs an increased budgetary allocation as well as corresponding improved release of funds by the Treasury. Further, Chair, the committee recommends that the budgetary share should be increased to meet at least 5% of the total national budget. A more balanced allocation across capital, recurrent, and sanitation programs should also be implemented, failure to which Zambia will still struggle to meet its 8th National Development Plan targets and safeguard public health, especially in the wake of recurrent cholera outbreaks and worsening climate shocks. I move to head 53, Chair, which is the Ministry of Green Economy and Environment. The committee observes that the budgetary allocation for environmental protection remains relatively low at 0.6% of the total national budget. This Chair,
on page 10, honorable members. Sorry, the recommendation on page 10. I'm just guiding the members. Okay, you can continue.
Chair, this modest allocation raises concerns about the government's capacity to meet key targets, such as increasing environmental capacity to meet key targets, environmental compliance. I want to repeat that. This modest allocation, Chair, raises concerns about the government's capacity to meet key targets, such as increasing environmental compliance to 65% by 2026, as well as scaling up ecosystem restoration and pollution control efforts. The committee further notes with concern government's intention to reduce greenhouse emissions by promoting carbon projects. Now, Chair, promotion of carbon markets cannot stop the environment from being polluted. Later on, cannot stop other climate changes or other effects to climate change. In this regard, the committee recommends for a more sustainable solution to reduce greenhouse emissions, such as advocating for the use of smart green technology. The committee further recommends that a threshold of at least 2% of the national budget should be allocated to the environmental sector. The committee further observes with concern the overdependence on external financing towards the running of key programs and sub-programs, which stands at 83.2%. This indicates a problematic model that leans on external funding and sub-grants. In this regard, the committee recommends for more domestic financing through initiatives such as the Constituency Development Fund, especially towards building climate resilience at community level. I move to head 63, the Ministry of Energy. The committee chair observes that while the ministry has made progress in expanding renewable energy access, the relatively small allocation of just about 0.5% to the renewable energy development can slow the transition to a more sustainable energy mix. In this regard, the committee recommends the need for increased investments in other renewable technologies such as kinetic hydropower as well as thermal power, among others. The committee further notes the government's intention to implement cost-reflective tariffs in order to create opportunities for increased private sector investment in the energy sector. Note that, Chair, this move will help to alleviate the current energy deficit. However, the committee emphasizes the need to match any increase in tariffs with energy supply. In this regard, the committee recommends increased allocations and investments in the sector through renewable energy and rural electrification projects, in addition to policy reforms and sustainable financial growth strategies in the sector. I move to head 68, Chair, which is the Ministry of Tourism. The committee observes with concern that despite government's intentions to promote domestic tourism and restocking of depleted national parks through the relocation of wild animals, there are inadequate numbers of wildlife police officers in the Department of Wildlife and National Parks. Further, from the 1,000 wildlife police officers earmarked for recruitment as of 31st August 2025, no recruitment was undertaken. Considering that the effects of climate change has led to an increase in incidences of human-wildlife conflicts due to shortages of water and food for wildlife, as well as human encroachment in wildlife corridors, the committee recommends that the government should prioritize the recruitment of wildlife officers so as to protect both the communities and wildlife. The committee further recommends that government's intention should align with both the set targets as well as availability of funds. In view of the foregoing, the committee observes that the 25.3% allocated to wildlife conservation, which is of utmost importance to tourism development, was inadequate to address the escalating human-wildlife conflict. The committee therefore recommends for increased allocation, as wildlife conservation was a source of competitive advantage at regional and international level. In conclusion, Chair, the committee notes that while the 2026 budget makes notable strides, including investments in various projects, much more needs to be done in terms of policy reforms as well as financial strategies if Zambia is to attain long-term support and inclusive economic growth. The budget allocations for Head 52, which is Ministry of Water Development and Sanitation, Head 53, Ministry of Green Economy and Environment, Head 62, Ministry of Energy, as well as 68, which is Ministry of Tourism, reflects both the strategic priorities and ongoing challenges ministries are facing. While each ministry saw changes in its respective allocations, some key areas and resource constraints are critical critical services require attention. All the four ministries, Chair, the committee interacted with indicated insufficient budget allocations and delayed disbursement of funds. It is therefore the expectation of the committee that the observations and recommendations contained in this report will receive favorable consideration from the government in order to ensure that the budget allocation to these institutions align with Zambia's vision, the 2030 vision, and the 8th National Development Plan objectives. Chair, I submit.
Thank you, Vice Chairperson, for that submission. Honorable Mpundu. Honorable members, any questions? Honorable General Scholar. Another indicating to ask questions? Honorable Scholar.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much, Vice Chair, for the presentation. I draw your attention to your submission on energy, Vice Chair. Indeed, we cannot pretend, and the problems in the energy sector are quite huge. Development in the process is affected because of lack of power. In your interaction, your committee's interaction with the stakeholders, especially the ministry officials, I don't know whether there was any thought or any indication in the use of nuclear energy for power purposes. Vice Chair, I bring this because I think we are all aware now that we have uranium in this country, and in many countries, even in Africa here, Kenya for example, they have taken strides to use nuclear energy. In Europe, it's not something that we can talk about. The 24-hour power that we witness when we visit these countries is all because of nuclear power. I say this knowing that solar has got its own limitation. You can have the solar, but then in the night, it's very difficult to sustain it. So I just wanted to hear from you whether your committee actually maybe took this in consideration as you were interacting, because I want to believe it's the only way forward, knowing that our water bodies now, I think even in places where to now put hydropower, we seem to be running out of them, and the population indeed is increasing. When you look at the challenges now, it's not only about water. The fact is that the demand, because of the population, is so much. Thank you very much, Vice.
Thank you. Honorable Murebwa.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Good morning, Vice Chair, Honorable Pundwith and Tuareg. My question really and my concern has been in the Ministry of Tourism. I note that almost nothing has been done in terms of aggressive advertisement in attracting tourists to our country. During your interaction with your witness, have they indicated their plans as to how they can take up this to a point where Zambia can be known on the road map? Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you. Vice Chairperson, can you respond to us with your colleagues?
Chair, the Honorable Sitwala's observation is very, spot on. We also, as a committee, did make these similar observations, except what would obviously be of interest to you is that actually the ministry is considering, as basically reverted back to, considering, tapping into the potential of nuclear energy. Remember, as a committee, we equally emphasize that there's need for continuity beyond any government. What has brought us here is policy inconsistency in terms of the energy sector. Remember, Chair, that this government, or rather this country, at one point expressed intentions to pursue our capacity to exploit nuclear energy. You remember that we had gone further as a country to even establish the Atomic Agency, which was headed by the late Mr. Msiska. You also wish to know as a committee that this particular undertaking even saw more or less support that was coming from Russia, where we should have even set up a nuclear power facility in the northern part. This program stalled because of policy issues. So it will obviously delight you to note that government has gone back now. In the 2025-26 national budget, they have actually allocated resources towards exploiting the potential in the side of things. So just to respond to that, it looks like it is under consideration. There's allocation to exploit that potential. I'll also be asking my colleagues to add if I leave anything. As to the question of Honorable Mulebwa, the committee equally observed this issue of the lack of advertisement around our tourism sites. We also noted that we seem to be in one side, in terms of tourism. It looks like all the tourism activities are happening in the south. We haven't exploited so much of the northern circuit in terms of tourism. the ministry responded, particularly the issue of advertisement, that they've actually been considering making, significant investment in advertising the country. You are aware there are models that have been set before us, like our friends in Rwanda who have advertised their country by sponsoring, a football club, Arsenal, where they're spending millions of dollars to just have the Visit Rwanda on the jersey of Arsenal. Such consideration have also been made by the ministry, except that it costs a lot of money which the ministry, according to the allocation, cannot obviously afford. So part of the other strides that are being made by the ministry is to ensure that before we can even go outside, we promote local tourism. There is a program being called, Zambia Local, which is an effort to market Zambian tourism first within, as we look to other efforts to market, Zambia, to the outside. But I think my colleagues can also add if I've left something.
Thank you so much. I think mainly those are some of the areas that we actually interacted with the ministry. Other than that, the ministry is doing a lot to ensure that the road network is being worked on, leading to these tourist areas. As you know, Chair, our road network in these areas are quite bad. This committee undertook a program to visit these areas, and we discover that there's a big challenge when it comes to road network. And of course, in one of the interactions, the ministry is also encouraging where certain sites are being shared, the constituencies can put resources together, do some of the small jobs, especially when it comes to road network. So basically, those are some of the things that the government, through the ministries, putting up to ensure that these areas are accessed, and like the chair indicated, encouraging the Zambians to take Zambia Local. Those are some of the initiatives. Chair, thank you.
Chair, it will also just add up, as part of efforts to market Zambia, the ministry also pointed to the activity that was undertaken by the ministry not long ago, where bikers from all over the region were assembled in Livingstone. That single activity is one of the efforts to try and market the country. You saw how many bikers came from Mozambique, Botswana, South Africa, in all these areas. It is part of those efforts, because this was brought to our attention, especially that we were trying to find out how is it that we have failed to hold major events. We highlighted as an example the vast water bodies. Why don't we have things like water rafting, sporting events? And the response was that they're already doing something. As an example, the same assembly of bikers is one effort to try and market the country.
Yeah, taking advantage of your, and in fact it's something which you have indicated, one of the concerns which you have raised is that all the heads which we interacted with, is the issue of the insufficient allocation of funds, and we haven't seen anywhere, in fact within there, where you are even like proposing, say, to move funds from, say, one line item to the other. And one of the departments which has been of concern, in fact, in this committee, is the Rural Electrification Authority, where I think for a long time and consistently, even when they do receive their funding, always the Benny rate has been a disappointment, and they are alluding that to issues of procurement challenges. Now that you are the one who is managing from the parliament side of view, this is your committee, what is being done maybe to unlock such, if you are told, just when you interact with them, because RIA receives, in fact, almost the largest chunk of funding, beating in fact the parent ministry, and so because of the this program where they need to construct these, what do you call them, the power, as we call them, power lines, you know, to enhance the accessibility of electricity. So we just wanted to find out for our comfort in terms of the challenges that which they are facing, especially on the issues of procurement, so that then we unlock that issue of where they are given funds and funds are not being utilized on time. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Chair. We surely interacted with all the ministries, and of course, like the Chair indicated in his report, the major problem that has been discovered is basically is not the utilization of funds by this ministry. I will tell you that when we interrogated the figures, we discovered that the utilization by the ministry stands somewhere above 98%, which to us, it was a clear indication that the ministry are able to absorb the resources given. The biggest challenge that have been discovered is the release of funds. What the ministry indicated is that sometimes the funds comes at the last minute, which is in December, making it very difficult to utilize the funds. But then, mainly, the release of funds is never 100%. So, what must be done is actually now to lobby with the Minister of Finance to ensure that the funds are released on time, not a situation where by now, we are in the fourth quarter, certain ministry we are still somewhere about 50%. So if we can improve in the release of funds, then we expect this ministry to improve in terms of their expenses. Then we also discover that most of the sectors are not fully, the resources are not adequate, making it very difficult for us to make any adjustment in terms of the resources. So what has been discussed and agreed is that where we feel like the means of water, which the funding stands at 1.06%, the only way is probably the ministry now to apply for what do you call this fund? For supplementary, yes, that's the term I was looking for. The only way is for ministry to apply for supplementary at the right, at an appropriate time. For now, it's a bit tricky to move any funds because almost every sector is not very comfortable. Chair, I submit, maybe you can contribute.
So the last question will be, you would want to react, Vice Chair?
No, Chair, I think that the response is very adequate.
Okay, thank you. So Honorable Mutintan, then Honorable Simunji, then we'll close.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chairman. Maybe, I don't know if this question has already been asked. For the heads that are under consideration, is the committee also confirming that they are not proposing any movements of money from anywhere to anywhere, or because they've brought some of the areas which they think they are priority areas?
Yeah, that has been addressed.
Okay, sorry, I missed that one.
Yeah.
Apologies for that.
No, that's fine. But they can swear enhance in case. Yeah. Okay, Honorable Simunji.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I'll take you to page 13. And there I will take you to head 2102 and 2103. That's electricity development and electricity management, and then renewable energy. I can see more money being allocated to electricity development, which relies heavily on the hydro. For some time now, I think hydro has disappointed the country when the rains are not there. Now, the new norm is to go to renewable energy. Did you find out from the witnesses why we are putting more money on electricity generation using hydro rather than going to renewable energy, which is always there, day in, day out? Thank you very much.
Thank you. You can respond to that?
I think, Honorable Chair, the question of Honorable Simunji, the allocation to electricity development does not necessarily refer to investment in hydro. In fact, the priority seems to be government shifting towards these alternative sources. As we have highlighted in the report, government is prioritizing, more of renewable sources. In fact, they are opting to pursue, the potential in kinetic hydropower, not the hydropower, the water hydro, but the kinetic as well as thermal power. Like also in responding to general, interestingly, government is even now considering exploiting even nuclear. So you can see there's slowly an attempt to divert from hydro, except the figures you see in there are still very far in really making a significant investment in all these areas. What remains as something that must be of priority is to remove the bottlenecks. There are quite a number of investment requests or interests, especially in solar and these other renewable sources, except for a project to move to approval is something that maybe the committee can also help the next time you are going to interact with stakeholders like the ministry. There's too much bureaucracy for a project to see it to commencement.
Okay, honourable members, we need to end here. I see an indication for some contributions.
Yes, through chair and the committee. Chair, it is important to note that there's huge lamentations from various ministries, not even our ministries that we interacted with, because I'm in the other committee of the ministry. So to develop the country, there's need for early release or disbursement of funds for the ministries to carry out their mandate. That is what I wanted to emphasize to the committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much.
Chair, just an amplification. It will interest this committee that in fact, across all the 4 ministries, in terms of releases, we are performing at less than 50%. And that is at the time we were interacting with the committees. This is 2 months to the end of the year. We have released not more than 50% across all the 4 ministries. Now it tells you, Chair, that 2 months to go, it's very impossible that all the programs that were budgeted for the 2025 budget would be met if funds were made available today.
Okay, honourable members, we have to end here. Vice Chairperson with your team, thank you very much for coming to appear before this committee. We are meeting the Minister, I think, on Wednesday. Once we finish consolidating all these recommendations, which obviously we are going to bring to his attention and see how best maybe this can be resolved, some of these challenges. So we want to thank you for coming. Enjoy the rest of the day. I see an indication.
Just a small request. Since you are meeting the minister, one issue that still remains very hanging that we maybe through you you can interrogate the minister or maybe push forward is that other than just a mere pronouncement, particularly in the establishment of another pipeline, which is going to be carrying multiple products. Remember that we converted Tazama into a single carrier or product carrier. Government has now intentions through the budget. There was an announcement that now we are going to exploit the potential, the possibility of establishing another pipeline to carry multiple products. There doesn't seem to be any amounts allocated towards it, so it seems to just simply be a pronouncement whose timelines are not properly indicated. Chair, we submit.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Have a good day. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for still being with us on Parliament Television, still watching the Inside the Sector budget. And our witness was the Vice Chairperson of the Committee on Energy, Water Development and tourism, and this is Honorable Binwo Mpundu making submission to the committee, and this committee considered, or should I say, they were receiving submissions on head 52, which is Minister of Water Development and Sanitation, head 53, Minister of Green Economy and Environment. They also received a submission regarding head 62, Ministry of Energy, and lastly, they also interacted with stakeholders on head 68, which is tourism. So today, the Vice Chairperson of that committee, the Energy, Water Development and Tourism, made submissions to the Expanded Planning and Budgeting Committee, and later on this committee will make submission to the whole House. So we keep broadcasting live these interactions with various committees. For now, we'll take a break. On the other side, once the other witnesses are ready, we'll cross back to that committee. My name is Paul Sentendovian. Keep watching Parliament Television.